He fired her in front of everyone, then found out she was raising his dead brother's son. The champagne hadn't even dried when she heard the word leave. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Clint Mercer was the kind of man who spoke like he signed termination letters, without emotion, without hesitation, and always at full volume in a room that had just gone quiet. Tessa Rose stood frozen. A silver tray trembled in her grip, half-empty glasses rattling as the last of the spilled champagne soaked through the tuxedo of one of Clint's VIP guests. Bubbles clung to the man's lapel like an insult. A small, stunned gasp rippled from a woman nearby. The rooftop gala above the Crestmore, the most exclusive tower in downtown Salt Lake City, had gone silent. Tessa, her team leader, hissed under her breath from the shadows, "Move!" But she didn't, because Clint Mercer's eyes were on her, and those eyes were dangerous. "I said," he repeated, slower this time, "leave." The jazz trio had stopped playing mid-note. Guests turned, whispering behind crystal flutes and designer clutches. Waitstaff stood still, their eyes flicking from the ruined tux to the woman holding the tray. No one moved to help. No one defended her. No one asked if she was okay. Tessa placed the tray on the edge of the table. Carefully, gracefully, like she hadn't just been gutted in front of Salt Lake's elite. She turned and walked out with her chin high and her soul unraveling. She didn't cry in front of them. She waited until she hit the stairwell. Then she crumbled. The catering gig had been last minute. For hours. Low pay. No benefits. But just enough to stretch her tank of gas and buy groceries for the weekend. She'd borrowed her mother's old black flats, tied her hair back with a rubber band, and promised herself she'd get through it with dignity. She hadn't expected someone to bump her from behind. Hadn't expected the tray to shift mid-pour. Hadn't expected the liquid to splash directly onto one of Mercer's most valuable investors. And she definitely hadn't expected him, Clint Mercer, to humiliate her like that. Not in front of everyone. Not like she was disposable. Tessa sat in the dark driver's seat of her beat-up Honda Civic, shaking. Her apron still clung to her waist. Her fingers were sticky with champagne. Her phone buzzed once. A message from her neighbor. Elias Chaslet. Still wants to show you his drawing in the morning. Said he made you into a superhero. Tessa covered her mouth with one hand, trying to swallow the sob that rose in her throat. Superhero. She couldn't even keep a catering job. 50 stories above her, Clint Mercer stood alone in his glass-walled office, staring down at the glittering city that never touched him. The gala had been a formality, a chance to reassure his investors that the Mercer brand was still untouchable. And then, just after the spill, just after the woman with the trembling hands vanished into the night, a package had arrived. A thick envelope, handwritten, personal, his name on the front, no return address. Inside, a notarized letter from an estate lawyer he hadn't spoken to since the funeral last year. "Mr. Mercer, you are receiving this by delayed instruction of your brother's estate. Per his final request, you are to be notified now. He had a son. The legal guardian is named below. Tessa Rowe." Clint stopped reading. He turned over the photograph tucked into the envelope. There she was, the same woman he just fired, and beside her a boy, maybe 5, maybe 6. He looked like him, like the brother Clint had spent half a lifetime trying to forget. Tessa wasn't expecting anyone, especially not him. The knock came at 8:43 a.m., sharp, deliberate, almost surgical. Not the frantic knock of a neighbor or the casual tap of a delivery driver. It was the kind of knock that came with expectation, with ownership. She paused at the stove, spatula still in hand, the smell of pancakes lingering in the small kitchen. Her heart stuttered. The TV hummed low in the background. Eli was in the next room, humming to himself while he colored on the floor, still in pajamas with one sock missing. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, moved toward the window, and parted the curtain. And there he was, Clint Mercer, standing on her porch like he had every right to be there. Like he hadn't humiliated her in front of 300 people just days earlier. He was in a tailored navy overcoat, not a hair out of place, a leather document folder in one hand, the other stuffed in his pocket like he owned the air around him. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. Chest tight, fists clenched, breath locked somewhere between anger and panic. She opened the front door only a crack, just enough to let him see her glare. No, his eyes didn't even blink. Tessa. No, she started to shut the door, but his voice slipped through, firm, calm, controlled. I need to speak with you. About your son. The door stopped moving. The air between them shifted. Her voice dropped. You're not going to say his name. Clint didn't step forward. He didn't raise his tone. He simply reached into his coat and pulled out a thick, cream-colored envelope. Familiar. Too familiar. She stared at it like it might burn her. I have no idea how you got that, she said, voice tight. But you had no right. It was sent to me last night, delayed per estate terms. I already know what it says. Then you know I didn't come here to start a fight. Tessa opened the door an inch wider, just enough to keep her voice from waking Eli. Oh, I think humiliating me in front of a room full of people qualifies as starting something. A flicker of guilt crossed Clint's face, brief but real. I didn't know who you were, he said. And you think that makes it better? He didn't answer. Let me guess, she continued, voice sharp. You read the letter, saw your brother's name, saw a photo of Eli, decided it was time to play family. I didn't know my brother had a son, he said evenly. You didn't know a lot of things, she shot back. Like the fact that your brother spent the last 2 months of his life in hospice while I held his hand. Or that Eli watched me sell everything we owned just to pay for cremation. Or that I took 3 jobs to keep a roof over our heads. But sure, now you're here, with your envelope and your name and your money. Her chest heaved. Her palms were slick. And still, Clint didn't leave. He stepped forward, slow and measured, like he was handling a live wire. I'm not here to take him from you. Tessa folded her arms. What exactly are you here for, Mr. Mercer? His jaw tightened at the formality. I'm here, he said quietly, because I don't know how to fix any of this. But I know what it feels like to grow up without a father. And I won't let that happen again. Not if there's a chance to do it right. She stared at him and hated that some small, traitorous part of her believed him. You want to fix this? She asked. Then walk away. She didn't give him time to respond. She stepped back, pulled the door shut, and locked it with a trembling hand. Then leaned against it, chest heaving. From the living room, a soft voice called out, Mom? Who was at the door? She turned, blinking back the tears she didn't have time for. Just someone who got the wrong house, she whispered. But outside, Clint Mercer didn't leave. He stood on the porch for another 3 minutes, unmoving, holding a letter that had shattered everything he thought he knew. Then he turned and made a silent promise to himself. If she wouldn't let him through the front door, he'd find another way in. Clint Mercer had spent 20 years turning closed doors into open deals. He didn't beg, he didn't plead, and he didn't wait. When Tessa Rose slammed the door in his face, he didn't flinch. He simply turned around, walked down her cracked concrete steps, and made a call before he even reached the sidewalk. Run a full workup on her. Name's Tessa Rowe. Lives on East 31st. Single mother. I want everything legal, but I want it fast. The voice on the other end hesitated. How deep? Every employer. Every residence. Anyone tied to her kid. I want to know what she eats, where she banks, and who watches her windows when she's not home. He ended the call, shoved his hands into his coat pockets, and exhaled sharply. The November air burned his throat. This wasn't about ego anymore. This was blood, and Clint didn't play games with blood. Back in his high-rise office, Clint sat behind a desk made of Italian ash wood, staring at a file that hadn't existed 12 hours ago. His legal assistant had called in 3 favors just to get partial access. Tessa Rowe, age 32, born in San Diego, moved to Utah at 19, nursing degree incomplete, no erests, no bankruptcies, no social, single dependent. Eli Rowe, age 6, birth certificate, sealed, paternity, not declared, court record sealed under minor protection clause. He leaned back in his chair, brows drawn. Sealed birth records weren't rare, but paired with a missing father, a closed estate, and a sister-in-law who never asked for a dime, that was a pattern. He called up the photo again, the one from the envelope. It was her, no makeup, holding a smiling boy on her lap in a threadbare park hoodie. The kid wasn't dressed like a Mercer, but he looked like one. Same ears, same crooked smile, Same eyes as Clint's late brother, Nathan. But there was no documentation, no claim, no losot, nothing to suggest Tessa had ever tried to collect a dime from the Mercer family. No paper trail, no threat, no liberty. She wasn't hiding something for gain. She was protecting it out of fear. And now someone else knew. 3 miles away, inside a diner with flickering overhead lights and a jukebox stuck on silence, a man scrolled through his phone with one finger and a purpose. He wasn't dressed like a threat. Work boots, flannel, beat-up ball cap. But his eyes were sharp, focused. He watched the grainy footage on repeat. Tessa in a catering uniform. Clint Mercer turning away from her, tension painted across their faces. He took a screenshot, then another, this one outside her apartment. He zoomed in, captured the license plate of her car, the layout of her porch, the model of her deadbolt. He sent the images to a private contact labeled "Only $" with a single message. Target confirmed. Boy is real. Mercer just stepped in. A reply came instantly. Keep eyes on her. Don't move until we say. That afternoon, Tessa knew something was wrong before the mail even arrived. The neighbor across the street, the one who always watered her lawn at 3 p.m. sharp, hadn't stepped outside. The parked sedan that usually belonged to the man with the 2 poodles was gone, replaced by a different car with out-of-state plates. A man had walked past the house twice now. Same coat, same slow turn of the head. She stared at him from behind the curtain, stomach turning, and then a different knock came at the door. Not firm, not demanding, just present. Clint. Again. She opened it halfway, ready to fight. But the look in his eyes stopped her. Not cold, not smug, worried. You're being followed, he said, voice low. She crossed her arms. Is this another one of your scare tactics? I don't do tactics with children, he replied. Only enemies. Well, I'm neither. He looked past her shoulder, toward the hallway, where Eli's drawings were taped to the wall. That's why I'm here. I told you, Clint. You don't get to walk in here with your last name and suddenly play savior. I'm not playing anything, he said, but someone else is. And they're not watching you because of me. They're watching you because of what you're protecting. Tessa's heart skipped. He knew. Not everything, but enough. Enough to scare her. Her voice dropped. You think they want money? No, he said quietly. They want leverage. She went silent, because he was right, and she'd spent 6 years making sure no one could find it. Until now. Tessa didn't invite him in, but she didn't shut the door either. Clint stood just outside the threshold, the chill of late autumn clinging to his coat, his jaw tight with silence. Inside, Eli's laughter floated faintly down the hallway as he played, unaware that his world was being dissected just a room away. Tessa leaned against the frame, arms crossed. Why do you care now? His voice was steady. Because I didn't know there was something to care about until last night. She gave a humorless laugh. Funny how fast guilt grows when there's paperwork attached. I'm not here because of guilt. Then why? He hesitated. And that, more than anything, unnerved her. I don't know yet, he said honestly. Tessa studied him for a long moment. The man who'd once looked through her like glass, now standing on her porch with tension in his shoulders and questions he didn't know how to ask. Finally, she stepped aside. 5 minutes. She made tea, because she needed something to do with her hands. Clint stood in her living room like it might detonate beneath his shoes. His eyes scanned the space. Simple furniture, blankets draped over the couch, crayon drawings taped to the wall. Nothing strategic, nothing rich, just real. When she returned, she handed him a mug and sat across from him at the kitchen table. You want answers, she said quietly. Then stop acting like this is just about blood. I'm here because of my brother. No, she interrupted. You're here because of the legacy he left behind. The one you didn't want to touch while he was alive. Clint didn't respond, because she wasn't wrong. Tessa exhaled, fingers tightening around her mug. I met Nathan 6 years ago. He was staying under a different name. Said he needed time away from the city, from the pressure. He didn't tell me who he was, not at first. Just that he was sick and didn't trust anyone with the truth. Clint looked up sharply. He told you he was sick? Not right away. But I worked in home care at the time. I could see it. He was thin, tired, coughing blood into napkins he'd hide when I came in. Clint swallowed hard. I didn't know. No one did. He didn't want help. He didn't want headlines. He just wanted to be a person again. We spent 6 months together. I didn't plan for any of it. And by the time I realized I was pregnant, he was gone. She stood and walked to a drawer, pulled out a worn envelope and dropped it on the table. He left this for me. No return address. No contact. Just instructions. Protect the boy. Keep him out of your world. Out of your hands. Clint stared at the envelope. His throat was dry. He said that. Tessa nodded. He didn't trust you. Said you'd turn Eli into an asset. Something to manage. I didn't believe him at first. But then I saw the man you are. She folded her arms. The man who fires strangers without blinking. The man who walks into someone's life only when it costs him something not to. Clint didn't argue, because it was true, and it stung. I didn't know he was dying, he said finally. I believe you. The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was heavy. Eli's footsteps padded into the hall. Mom, Tessa turned. In here, baby. Clint stood. The boy entered the room. Messy hair, soft eyes, a smudge of marker on his cheek. His gaze lifted to Clint, then paused. Neither of them spoke. Not first, but something passed between them. Not recognition, not exactly. Something older. Something blood deep. Clint crouched slowly, carefully. You must be Eli. Eli nodded. Gotios. I'm Clint. The boy studied him, then whispered. You look like the man in the picture by Mom's bed. Tessa's breath caught. Clint looked up at her, and she realized for the first time, he didn't just want answers. He wanted connection. But outside the house, the man watching from the parked car took another photo. Sent another message. Confirmed. Boy and Mercer connected. Recommend moving to phase 2. Clint didn't sleep. Not that night. Not the one after. He tried. God, he tried. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw Eli's face. Heard the boy's soft voice. Watched the way he looked up at him like he was something unfinished. Like he was searching for a resemblance he didn't yet understand. Clint had built his empire by controlling every piece on the board. But now, for the first time in a decade, he didn't know what move to make. Because this wasn't business. This was blood. And blood didn't follow strategy. Meanwhile, the media storm was brewing. An anonymous source had leaked Clint's involvement with a potential heir tied to his late brother. Headlines speculated. Gossip swirled. Clint Mercer caught in hidden heir scandal. Who is the child? Insiders say brother's death was covered up. What is Mercer hiding? Clint's PR team begged him to release a statement. Investors demanded clarity. But he said nothing. Not yet. Because Tessa had drawn a line. And he wasn't allowed to cross it without paying the toll. She met him again 2 days later at a park just outside the city, a quiet corner where Eli could play on the swings while they talked. She stood beside the jungle gym, arms crossed, coat zipped to her throat. Why are you really here? She asked. Clint didn't blink. Because the world's already circling, and you're not safe. Tessa turned her gaze toward the car parked across the street, the one that hadn't moved in over an hour. You think I don't know I'm being watched? She said. You think I don't see them? They're waiting for a headline, for a soundbite, for me to make a mistake. That's why I want to help. No. She turned to face him fully. You want to fix this? That's different. Clint exhaled. What would you have me do? Tell the truth. He frowned. To who? The press. The board. The people already spinning their version of this story. You want to help Eli? Then stop hiding him. Claim him. Publicly. Say his name. Say he's family. Clint went still. You don't understand. I understand better than you, she cut in. Because I've been telling the truth for 6 years. In job applications. On school forms. In ER visits when they ask if there's a father. I've been alone in the truth while you got to live in silence. Her voice shook. She didn't try to hide it. You want to protect him? She asked. Then start by being brave. Or leave. For good. Clint looked at her. Really looked. And then, for the first time in all the years he'd run billion-dollar deals, he said something he'd never once said in public. You're right. The next morning, Clint Mercer held a press conference. Nobody bugged it up. No podium. Just a single chair, one microphone, and a room full of cameras. My name is Clint Mercer, he began, and I'm here to tell you something personal. The air went still. He looked down, then back up. My brother Nathan passed away nearly 2 years ago. Before he did, he entrusted a part of himself to someone else, someone I didn't know, someone I should have known. He paused. Tessa watched from the back of the room. Eli sat on her lap, crayon in hand, eyes wide. The boy in question, his name is Eli, and he is family. Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters surged forward. But Clint didn't run, because for the first time in his life, he wasn't building a story. He was telling the truth. But truth has a price. And across town, a man in a dark suit received a new wire transfer. The name on the contract? Tessa Rowe. And the order? Take the boy and silence the rest. It happened fast. Too fast. 1 minute, Eli was tracing chalk stars on the sidewalk outside their townhouse, singing under his breath with his shoes untied. The next minute, he was gone. Tessa dropped the grocery bag when she saw the empty front step. Eli, she rushed down the walkway, scanning the corner where he usually left his scooter, the patch of grass he liked to call his space station. Nothing. Eli, she called louder, this time with panic cracking her voice. No answer. A neighbor glanced over from their yard, shook their head. I just saw him a minute ago. Thought he ran back inside. He hadn't. The front door was still locked, and every second felt like it stretched into a scream. Tessa's hands shook as she dialed. Clint picked up on the first ring. He's gone, she said. Her voice was hollow. I turned my back for 2 minutes. 2. And he's gone. Clint's world narrowed to a pinpoint. He was across town, in the middle of a board meeting, but none of that mattered. He didn't even grab his coat. He just ran, through the glass doors, down the stairs, into his car. By the time he reached Tessa Street, police were already there. But she wasn't crying. She was pacing the pavement barefoot, jaw tight, hair unbound, a fury in her eyes that he'd never seen before. I let him out of my sight, she whispered when he reached her. I looked away. I let them take him. We don't know that yet. No, Clint, she snapped. This wasn't a wandering child. Someone took him, and they knew exactly when to strike. A detective approached, notebook in hand. Do either of you have any idea who might want to hurt you? Someone watching the property? Any recent threats? Tessa turned slowly, her voice sharp. Start with Clint Mercer's enemies. Then move down the list. Clint's stomach dropped, because he didn't know someone who'd been watching. Someone who'd made a deal. Someone who wanted leverage. Not over Tessa, but over him. By nightfall, the police had canvassed 10 blocks. No sign, no shoe, no chalk, just an empty sidewalk and a mother unraveling by the second. Clint found her on the porch hours later, wrapped in one of Eli's blankets, rocking slightly with her hands in her lap. Not crying, not blinking, just still. This is my fault, she whispered. No, it's mine. She looked up, eyes red, voice quiet. You knew someone was watching. You knew, and you didn't stop them. I thought I had time. We don't have time, Clint. He's 6. And then her voice cracked. He's 6, and he thinks monsters only live under the bed. Clint didn't speak, didn't move, because inside, something cold had taken root. A feeling he'd buried long ago. The one that came when control vanished, and all that was left was blood. He stepped inside, pulled his phone from his pocket, and made a call he never thought he'd have to make. This is Mercer. I want access to the private security files. All of them. Footage. GPS logs. Third-party intel. I want them at my house in 1 hour. Bring my fixer. Sir, the voice said, should I call the police liaison again? No, Clint replied, voice like stone. I'm not going through the system anymore. He glanced at the empty hallway where Eli had drawn superheroes in marker. I'm going through them. Across the city, in a warehouse lined with surveillance monitors, a man closed a laptop. He turned to the child on the worn-out cot. Don't be scared, he said with a practiced smile. Your mom will see you soon. Just not yet. Eli looked up, silent, still, and very, very afraid. Clint had always operated in the realm of power, money, leverage, reputation. But none of it mattered now. Not the suits in his closet, not the skyline view from his office. Not the board, not the brand. Only the boy, Eli, and whoever had taken him. He stood in his private surveillance room, the one few people even knew existed, with 4 specialists and 2 black-suited security contractors reviewing traffic camera pulls gate logs, and private drone data that had been combed across the city in less than 6 hours. Every second counted. Every lead mattered. "Freeze it there," Clint ordered, pointing at one of the monitors. Footage slowed. A silver sedan, parked across from Tessa's house for 4 days straight. No plates registered. No movement until the day Eli vanished. Another camera, 2 blocks over. A man in a baseball cap, carrying what looked like a backpack. Timestamp: 15 minutes before Tessa screamed his name. But it was the last image that made Clint's blood run cold. A still frame, captured from a private garage camera linked to one of his subsidiaries. A man entering through a side door. Same frame, same cap, but this time his face was visible. Clint stepped forward, zoomed, froze. His heart dropped. Sawyer, his lead legal advisor, trusted for 8 years. A man Clint had invited into his family's home, into his private network. And now, the man who helped take Eli. He stared at the screen, lips parting but no sound escaping. "He sold us out," one of the analysts said. Clint's voice was quiet. "He didn't just sell me. He sold a child." His fingers curled into fists. Tessa had trusted no one. She had stood in that courtroom alone, raised Eli in silence, shielded him from the media, the lawyers, the legacy. And Clint had let someone in. Someone close. Someone who smiled during meetings and shook his hand while tracking his nephew. He turned to the team. "Where is he now?" The room went silent. Then one man spoke, tracking his burner. "Last ping hit an industrial park just outside Draper. Shut down years ago. West side. No camera coverage past the gate. Then we go now. Sir, load the car. Bring the backup unit. You got 10 minutes. Tessa sat on the living room floor, cradling Eli's blanket in her lap, like it might somehow bring him back. She hadn't eaten, hadn't moved, but she heard Clint's footsteps before he even knocked. She opened the door, saw his face, and knew something had changed. "Who?" she asked. Clint's voice was razor sharp. "Sawyer." Tessa's lips parted. "No, he worked with someone. We don't know who else yet, but he was the one watching your house. He knew the schedules. He knew the guard rotation. He fed it to someone who paid him." Her body leaned against the doorframe. "I trusted you," she whispered. "I know. Eli trusted you. I know. And now, he's still alive," Clint cut in, "and I'm going to bring him home." Her throat tightened. "How do you know?" Clint reached into his pocket and handed her a phone, open to a photo. Eli, lying on a cot, pale, eyes wide, alive. Her knees buckled. She dropped to the floor, covering her mouth with both hands. Clint crouched beside her. "I'm not waiting for a judge or a press release. I'm not playing this safe. You wanted me to stop hiding? Fine. But now I'm going to burn down anything that stands between us and your son." She looked up, tears burning through fury. "Then take me with you." Clint hesitated. Tessa stood. "He's my son. If you're going, I go." He didn't argue, because this time, he needed her. 30 minutes later, headlights cut through the shadows of an abandoned shipping yard. Inside one of the warehouses, Sawyer checked his watch and reached for the syringe. The warehouse was dead quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, the kind that hums with something waiting to break. Clint stepped out of the SUV first, the soles of his shoes crunching against broken gravel. Beside him, Tessa climbed down slowly, adrenaline pumping through her veins like fire. She clutched Eli's favorite blanket in her hands like a shield, her only armor. Security flanked them, dressed in tactical black, silent and focused. The target, a rusted shipping facility on the edge of Draper, decommissioned years ago, now crawling with shadows. Inside was her son. Inside was everything. Clint's voice was low. "You stay behind me. If you try to leave me out of this," Tessa said without blinking, "I will walk through that door alone." He didn't argue, because this wasn't just his mission anymore. This was hers. Inside the warehouse, Sawyer adjusted his tie in the flickering light, sweat pooling behind his neck. The buyer had gone dark. His burner phone was dead. The wire transfer was late. But Eli was still there, tied to a cot, quiet, watching. Sawyer crouched beside him, voice sweet and slick. "You've been very brave. Your mom's probably on her way. Don't worry. Everything's going to be okay." But the lie couldn't hold. Because outside, two black SUVs rolled to a stop. The warehouse doors screeched open, and Clint Mercer stepped inside like a man with nothing left to lose. "Sawyer," he called, voice echoing off metal walls. No answer. He moved deeper, past rusted scaffolding and stacked pallets. "Give me the boy," he said. "Right now." Sawyer stepped into view with a gun in one hand, the other shaking. "This wasn't supposed to go this far. I just wanted the money." It was leverage, a pressure tactic. Tessa emerged behind Clint, and the second she saw Eli, eyes wide, lip trembling, she stopped breathing. "Mom!" Eli cried out. Tessa ran. Sawyer flinched, raised the weapon. But Clint was faster. He tackled him hard, gun clattering across the concrete. A scuffle broke out, brutal and short. Years of power struggles poured into every punch Clint threw. Security swarmed in seconds. Sawyer hit the floor. Cuffed. Done. Tessa knelt beside Eli, hands trembling as she cut the zip tie from his wrist with a pocket knife one of the guards handed her. "I'm here," she whispered. "I've got you, baby." Eli buried his face in her chest and clung like the world would never stop spinning. And maybe it wouldn't, but for now he was safe. Clint stood over them, chest heaving, lip bleeding. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched and felt everything crash down at once. They rode to the hospital in silence. No sirens, no interviews, just soft breathing and the hum of tires over pavement. Doctors examined Eli immediately. He was dehydrated, rattled, but whole. "Physically, he's okay," the nurse told Tessa. "The rest will take time." Tessa stayed by his bed, brushing back his hair, whispering the same thing again and again. "You're safe now. You're home." Clint stood in the doorway for nearly 20 minutes before Eli finally turned to him. "You found me," the boy said, voice soft. Clint stepped in, crouched beside the bed. "I promised I would." Eli reached out, just barely, and rested his hand on Clint's. No more than that, but enough. The next morning, Clint Mercer announced his resignation. He walked away from the board, sold his controlling stake in Mercer Holdings, left behind the skyline that had once defined him. The press called it chaos. He called it clarity. 2 months later, the world had moved on. But in a sunlit backyard on the quieter side of Salt Lake City, Clint stood barefoot in the grass, holding one end of a crooked swing set while Tessa tightened bolts with a rusted wrench. "This thing is not structurally sound," he muttered. "You say that like you haven't built worse things." "Touché." A laugh escaped her lips, the first one in weeks that didn't sound like survival. Inside the house, Eli's voice called out, "Are you done yet? My spaceship needs launch clearance." Tessa turned to Clint. "You regret it?" she asked. "Which part?" "Any of it." He looked down at the swing set, then back at her. "No, I regret waiting so long to find you." She stepped closer, her voice quiet. "And now?" He reached up, pushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "Now I know what family feels like." And for once, no press, no scandal, no boardroom. Clint Mercer finally got it right. Not with a contract, but with a promise.